Well, you look at the farm economy, it doesn't look very promising. You're probably asking yourself, what am I going to do? And I'm going to ask you, what are you going to do? More importantly, I'm asking my friends right here, Chad, Temple, and Kelly, what are they going to do in this farm economy that doesn't look very promising? In this episode of The Granary.
You ready for a conversation with some real farmers about real issues? The best part, you're invited. So pour yourself a drink, grab a snack, most importantly, pull up a chair. Welcome to The Granary. Hey guys.
All right, Chad, what do you got in your hand right there?
Spoon.
What's the purpose of bringing a wooden spoon to the table at The Granary?
It's when you reach over and stop us.
So on the drive here, you and Temple had a little powwow, didn't you?
About every time we get rolling good and we get to talking good, you want to like hear yourself. So you like, so guys, the next time you so guys, it's going to be.
It's hard. What you have to actually do is when we're sitting around the table, you can't look at Damon because he's waiting for you to make eye contact.
So don't
make eye contact with him. He's shutting you down.
Switch goes on.
Yep.
So the next thing this spoon is good for, this is what Temple uses. And we asked the question, why does he have a spoon in his hand planting season? Yeah. And then we like, where does it come from? If you've ever seen a video of Temple when he's planting, he's got a spoon and he's digging a seed with a spoon.
All right, guys. Everybody wants to make fun of me for Temple's tips of the day. I'm going to give you a tip. Go to your wife's kitchen. Get you one of these. It's a metal spoon. Here's why you get it. Take your penknife that you usually dig up all this seed because we're always constantly out on the turn row, checking to make sure the planter's planting right. Get rid of your penknife that you dig with and use one of these. This thing is money.
I'm like, how did that get started? Well, I just started using a spoon. I said, no, you just don't start using a spoon.
But it isn't just a spoon. It's a spoon.
It's a spoon. Yeah,
it's a big metal stainless steel spoon.
So I'll go back to the spoon thing. Here's all that I once. When Temple, I went like this, and when I go,
this is the level that you can.
So when I come over here, because all I wanted to do was say, that's a brilliant point, Temple.
But you're getting too far over here. Like you're getting into my personal space.
And what's interesting is our director even told me yesterday, he says, hey, when you watch the replays, Temple a lot of times gets really discombobulated when you go like this because all you're trying to do is feed off him. So I don't believe for 1 second.
You're not feeding off of anybody. You're trying to cut us off so you can make what you think is a valid point because you've already studied your little folder that you've been carrying.
He's the only one here that's had his makeup and hair done.
Well, he's always got to have gel in his hair anyway. But, you know.
I'm pretty. I'm pretty.
You're a lot of things. Pretty ain't one of them. But when he gets to sit there and study his manual, and he's going over and over and over. So he's already got scripted in his mind exactly what he wants to say and how many times he wants to cut you off. Actually, then he wants us to be raw and real. What we really ought to do, see, you're trying to cut me off.
Build in the interruption.
You got to keep going.
What we really need to do is maybe one of these episodes, we just come up with the topic ourselves and discuss
and present
the whole thing and then present you with it and see how off cuff you get.
I love it.
Okay, so where's your book? Because we're going to burn it. Straight burn it.
All right, so back when I'm reaching out here, I don't believe that Chad's a violent man. What I think happened on your drive to the farm today, I think that you sat there and sort of instigated him. And what I believe happened 100%. Was like two kids in the back of a station wagon where the one is really a well-behaved one and the other one is a shit and then just starts getting the other one like, hey, you know, flip off that lady in the car at the stoplight. Next thing you know, Chad's going to get in trouble and going to get...
because it was your aunt.
You're going to get in trouble because
it's your mom.
Temple is dragging you down to his level of behavioral mischief. And I think that really you should really...
So Temple, what about planting season?
But see, why can't you just take conductive criticism? Like you always have to argue the point that you're right and that you're going to do this your way.
Am I arguing? Would you take my side?
You're arguing now.
Hey, remember, success, failure. I mean, just do that.
We're back on the failure side. We're back on the failure side again.
I'm on my own corner.
You kind of are in your own corner, more like your own world.
Again, the third thing the spoon's used for. If you have it, you're the only one who can talk. I have the talking spoon.
That's
what a great episode. What a great episode.
So I find...
What a great episode.
You're a brilliant contributor. I really appreciate this.
Boy, This is fantastic. This is probably the best episode ever. I mean, it only took a spoon to shut Damien down. I mean, this is great.
Where has that spoon been?
We'll put it back in the center table so we can all discuss things.
All right, so I'm going to just kind of point out here. First off, that's a little bit Lord of the Flies. If you remember, they made it read in high school. At least they made me read in high school. The conch, the person that held the conch shell could actually talk. So anyway, this is kind of the conch. I was warned by our producer about me reaching over to help you finish your point and that it messed you up. So I'm telling you what, I'm going to sit on my hands from now on these episodes.
They'd have to handcuff you.
Maybe a straight jacket. Straight jacket?
Yeah, straight jacket would be way better for you. Hi, I'm Damien Mason.
So anyway, on the way here, he got you all wound up and saying that I was a bad guy and that I caused you grief and that you're going to start taking a weapon. You went over here to the kitchen and got this weapon out. I'm worried where this goes, that you continue to let Temple take you down these bad paths.
No, what it really is like we've been here at this granary, and we're shooting these episodes and we're talking about, suicide rate among farmers, and it's got me tying up a noose, talking about it. And then we talk about other things. And then, what I really want to talk about is what we're going to do this planting season. Like, what are we going to do? Because I want to be home right now working on my planter. I'm knocking disc openers off of it. And then I'm thinking like, well, this disc opener comes at 15 inches. This one's 14 3/4. She's going back to the field. This one's 14 1/4. Like, I think it'll plant 500 acres. Like, and when we had $8 corn, we just put new disc openers on every year. And now we got corn that's coming in at $4. And you're like, that disc opener's running again.
Because in your soil, you have to change them throughout the season. They're not going to last all season. Correct?
No, they'll last. They'll last like this. It's according to what we do. If we was no-tilling like you, then we would probably have to put them on every week.
Every week.
So wait a minute. On the drive down here, after Temple got you all agitated to come here, instigated and agitated to come here and threaten physical violence, which, I just want to point this out. And I donate to the sheriff in this county. So if I have to make a call.
You have to donate in this county.
How does this?
Hold on. You have to donate in this county because of the trouble that you've been in this county.
I have to donate in my county because Amber drives 100 miles an hour all the time.
So anyway, you got agitated and instigated, and then you wanted to move on to talking. So the thing is, back to the spoon, the wooden spoon he carries. Is that one of the things you're going to do this year? You're going to start putting a metal spoon in your tractor, your plant tractor?
No, I don't. You're still going to dig everything up with a penknife.
I'm going to dig it.
The only reason the spoon really came up was, I think Kelly probably called it right. Somehow or another, there had to be a spoon that got in your service truck, and it was probably my mom.
Your mom probably brought lunch out and forgot the spoon, and you kept it.
And it, something got in there, and I went to check the a field, didn't have my penknife to go check to see what the seed depth was, grabbed a spoon because it was the only thing in there.
And now
it's on every tractor.
Hey, now when I want to make a point and I'm afraid to reach out there, can I at least go like this to you? I look a little bit like somebody that's had an accident. I can go over there, but what do you think? What bothers you? Because they spent 20 minutes in the car talking about how they're going to physically assault me because I so much as go like this when I want to make tie into their point. Do I do anything that bothers you?
He laid that down. That's her guinea pig.
You do? I don't know if we have that kind of time.
I'll tell you the thing that bothers me.
Yeah.
What really bothers me right now is going into this season. Like, I know we're here to talk about and cut up, but going into this season, like, what are we going to do? Like, look at the markets, look at where we're at, look at the prices, look at the interest rates. And, we cutting up about, your soil, my soil, the disc opener stuff, but we better get the use out of them that we can get, because things are tight and there's farmers that aren't going to make it.
It's hard to go into the season with a lot optimistic thoughts when it's tough to break even. We're going through my renewal right now. Garrett Land and Cattle, the tax year end is January 31st. So now we're going through the renewal process for next year, and we're looking at the numbers and stuff like that. I get some anxiety over it. And Jared said, Kelly, remember last year, what was the goal? And he said, the goal is to break even and maintain your working capital. I'm like, you're right. And he said, you did that. So that is success. And he said, you need to look at doing that again next year. Just don't go backwards.
And we give you a hard time on your soybean deal. We talk about what we got in soybeans, in your area, because we count everything. You can't just say, oh, I got, $100 in soybeans because that's all the seed and the fertilizer that I put in it. You know, when you count everything, and we give you a hard time about that, but it's the truth. You know, it's the truth about which one matters and what are we going to make a living on.
If we're spending money, it has to be attributed to something, and that
That's
money
right.
has to come from somewhere.
That's right.
And, you know, that was Jared's point on soybeans and like my $850, $900 cost per acre, that money has to come from somewhere, and the fixed costs are high enough that, for me, soybeans don't produce it.
Yep.
It's just going to be, you sit over there.
That's right.
It's going to be one of them years where it's concerning, like, especially for like the younger farmers. That's what's concerning for me. Like, and us as well, no doubt about it. But like the younger farmers that are out there, that it bothers me for them to have to go into this year and struggle that bad. I mean, we went through it. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, the inputs are so high and they're so out of control. You know, look at equipment prices, look at fertility prices. You know, I mean, it's all the inputs are so much more dramatic than what they were years ago. And then you can say, you know, for me, I don't have a lot of really, really new equipment, because I don't mind wrenching on them, but there's a cost there.
Yep.
You don't think it's all relative?
There's you talking again.
You're either making repairs or you're making payments, but if you're making repairs, you might be losing time.
Yeah, but you also got to keep in, and I mean, when I sit down at the end of the year, I had this discussion with Matt, and he was like, have you ever, like, at the end of the year, I know you look at your repairs. What is your repairs on your equipment? And I asked him, I'm like, well, what is your repairs? And he's like, on a lot of the equipment, it's zero. Like, you know what I mean? Like combines, tractors, sprayers.
With his
like
roll.
it's warranty. With my roll, it's zero. And he's like, what is yours? And I told him, he was like, holy, are you serious right now? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, and that's me doing the work. So
It's also not counting the time.
yeah,
What if you put in the time that you actually are doing all that?
Well, we work for free.
Okay, a technician would charge what, $75 an hour or something?
more
Right?
like 135.
$150 an hour.
$150 an hour when they come out from the dealership now.
And they charge you from the time they leave.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you get charged for brake cleaner, rags.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, when
And their cost is high too.
When you yelled at me for interrupting, I said, is it all relative? And I'm not, obviously I don't make the payments you guys do, but when you say, man, the costs are so much more than they were, are they really? Or is it just, it's a bigger number nominally, but in real dollars or on the spend per bushel, is it really changed? Is it really more now?
On New Year's Eve, 2007, my dad came home and he said, corn just got to $4 in Dow City. I want to sell the cows. I want to tear up as much ground and put it to corn. And that's the change. And I said, you're plumb crazy. And we did it. Now, corn got higher in 2008, but $4 corn was record high and was an amazing amount of money. And now you look at New Year's Eve 2007 to New Year's Eve 2024, corn's was about $4, and the costs are a lot higher.
Yep.
And so, no, it isn't all relative.
But you're also getting 50 more bushels per acre than you did in 2007.
Wrong.
30 more bushels than you did in
2008, we had 210 bushel corn. In 2024, we had 215 bushel corn.
So, I mean, it's not, the only things that you can come up in is you can produce more yield. And you have
he just says his yield hasn't changed.
And the only other thing you can do is
the national average.
You have to do it more efficiently. We got to be super efficient, and we got to be really due diligent on putting down the right fertility at the right time and get the most out of every ounce that you put out. Because if we don't, we start making these mistakes. We cannot farm like we did in 2007. No. If you farmed in 2025 like you did in 2007 with the fertility that you put out there, and the number is very different as far as your input. You know, equipment, all your other inputs, fertility, all that, the number is way different. So the only choice that you have to make is be efficient and don't overdo anything.
I looked at let's say how much is a new bean header right now? Let's say a 40-footer, 45-footer.
It's $160,000.
Okay. I pulled some papers out where we was cleaning up in the office. 98 bought a brand new combine, and it was a 9610. John Deere combine, biggest one they made. So I paid, got traded in a machine. They give me $40,000 for. We paid $173,000. Combine and header.
In 98 was my first crop. My dad and uncle owned the tractors, the planters, and everything. It was my job to bring in the combine. We were third. We had a 9,500 side hill. It was a second-year machine, and we went into the roll program with the dealership, and we rolled that combine for $60 a separator hour.
Boy, I'd like to do that again.
I'd like to do that again.
And so that's what we're talking about.
On $4 corn.
On $4 corn. And we did that. Well, that's the
So
problem.
it's not all relative.
No.
That's the problem is the maintenance on it. And we looked at, Brewer come down and we looked at those numbers, and if you spread the number, my number's like yours. I'll tell you, it's got a 4 in front of it.
Yeah.
On the repair side.
Mine's huge.
Mine's got a 4 in front of it. So, and Matt's has got a number in front of it on new equipment, but my new equipment don't have. So if you look at the ratio and you look at the 4 in front of it versus the amount of acres it is, and you look at the cost per acre, because you spread it over every acre, and you keep that ratio right, whether it's a new one or the old one.
How many cutbacks can we possibly make this year in order to just break even so we don't dig into our capital?
So you don't go into working capital.
Like, how many more cuts can we take? That's what makes me nervous. For that younger generation to have to go through that, and we've got a bunch of equity. Well, what happens if that farmer doesn't have a bunch of equity and he's just building right now?
He's got to have an off-farm job, and they,
We've been there before.
Yeah, people will ask me a lot of times, and I learned this term from Damien, intentional congruence, and then I was doing it beforehand. I didn't know the term. He taught it to me, but I try to use my trucks to do other things. I try to use my equipment to do other things instead of having that asset sit there. We custom farm about 1,000 acres.
Yeah, custom hire.
Just really got to diversify.
When you put that machine in the shed, it's still the payment's the same. Every day that payment's the same. So however many days you run it.
I've actually pointed out, and when I do a farmer audience, and I said, I think you're going to see an Uberization come to farm equipment. Now, we've done deals before where, you own the combine and we shared it between my farm and your farm. And people then say, oh, that wouldn't work. Because when I need my planter, I need my planter. And I said, well, I landed here in Kansas City and I needed to get to this hotel to do my job. And I got on my phone, and within 6 minutes, a guy in a Toyota Camry pulled up and picked me up and drove me here. So, if you had told somebody 20 years ago, oh, you're going to never even have anything lined up, you're going to land in some city and you're just going to pull up, somebody's going to come and haul you in a Toyota Camry. You say, all right, Damien, this doesn't make sense for my planter. I'm not going to just dial up a planter. I think maybe you will. Here's the deal. When interest rates were 2%, it didn't matter. You just said the price of this equipment is in real dollars, inflation adjusted dollars, it's more. You just use the combine header, $160,000 bean head. All right. I think you're going to get a lot more creative when $160,000 also has an 8% interest rate on it, because you're starting to talk about real money. Why can't you figure out a way to take his bean head and when he's done with it in June, get it to Minnesota? I just think that there's going to, the equipment, how much dollars are sitting in that tool shed over there is the question I think you should ask every farmer.
Right. And that goes on, with our custom operations and things like that. I work with my sister and brother-in-law. They used to have smaller equipment. We didn't have quite as much equipment. Now we have bigger equipment and we work together. So that goes on in places.
And it's going to happen more.
It's going to happen more.
Right. You have $2 million of machinery sitting over there that, again, if it was invested, you can get 5% on, you get 5% just in a money market. So that's $100,000. If you say, oh, that equipment's paid for, farmers like to do that. Well, this equipment's all paid for. Okay. You got $2 million of depreciating asset. If you just had that $2 million and put it into a money market, you could access any day 5%. That's $100,000.
And when corn goes from 6 to 4, the depreciation speeds up.
Yeah.
The used market ain't what it was.
It ain't what it was.
Yeah.
It ain't what it was.
I mean, they're going to have to do something to get really, really crazy to make this whole thing work. Because if you've been by the John Deere, the Deere dealerships, Case dealerships, there's a lot of really new-ish used equipment that are sitting on the lots. And they're going to have to do something, because the problem is, you take a lot of the guys that have been farming for, 10 or 15 years. A lot of these equipment companies has really sought after those guys, and it's cool to have, big, flashy, brand new equipment. And that stuff is coming back to haunt them now, because they're in a lot of these rollover programs where, hey, you have a tractor for 250 hours a year, but at the end of the year, you have zero equity in that piece of equipment, but you're rolling it over and you're getting a new one and it's cool to run something new. Well, you don't have any ownership in any of that. So what do? Now, they can walk away from it, and that's kind of nice. If things go bad and go south, you can walk away from it. But what happens when the equipment company says, hey, look, we got so much equipment on the yard, we're not doing this anymore? And that happened to me. Go ahead.
by the way, remember when I just used that example, you got $2 million of farm machinery as a farmer sitting in that tool shed. The equipment dealership might have $20 million of equipment sitting there, and don't pretend that somehow they don't. Remember, interest is interest. Yeah. Money is money.
They're paying interest.
They're paying interest on that also.
They're feeling the pinch as well.
Yeah,
everybody.
The manufacturer might give them 90 days on new, but after 90 days, they're paying for that new combine or whatever. So if you're sitting on $20 million of dealership and calling 8%, you're talking about, what's that amount to? $160,000? No, more than that. But anyway, it's 1.6.
That
$1.6 million a year.
Situation.
I mean, think about that. That means how much you got to make to, if you had $20 million throughout the year at 8%, that's $1.6 million you got to come up with.
Just a fortune.
Just to pay the interest on carrying all that inventory.
I mean, they're going to feel it. I mean, it happened, man, I don't know, it was 15 or 20 years ago. We were in a roll program and we were rolling, new tractors, new planters, and new combines every year. And one year came along and the dealership and the equipment company said, we can't do this anymore. And the way the paperwork was done, they were like, that's yours now. And you should have seen what that payment was on that next year. And I had no equity in any of it. So I took the equipment and struggled, made the payment, and I traded everything that I had. I was like, it's all gone. And I just wiped it out.
And went and bought used stuff.
Went and bought a bunch of used stuff and then went from there. And I said, I will, unfortunately, I'm hard-headed and I probably should have got back in the work program, but I got stung so hard. And I mean, you want to talk about bleed. I bled money and I was like, I'm out of this and I will never go back. So that's what kind of turned me into the person that I am now is like, I'm going to work on my equipment.
When you're working on a service truck to get to the broke down equipment, like that makes it too far.
That happened a couple of times this year.
The price of cool ain't cheap.
No. There's a saying about that. It ain't, I don't even know what it is, but.
You asked the question to start this, is you guys are saying now you're in charge of the episode topics from here on. So, you just tell me what we're going to do.
Much better episode.
So, all right. You asked the question. What are we going to do? I heard capitalize on intentional congruence. Mm-hmm. Obviously diversification. I've been looking at it. Diversification in the old days used to mean that you had a chicken coop, you had some milk cows on your rough ground, you had your beef cows, you maybe ran some, your wife was a teacher.
You ran some holes.
Yeah. And then you grain farmed, and then you also make sure you had a summer crop, that you got some revenue, wheat or oats or whatever in the summer.
You got a gas station.
I'm not so sure it all does.
That's what I'm saying. So
you're in the whole
you got a trucking company.
So it went from diversification to specialization. Now most people are really good at growing corn and soy and wheat. Boom, you are specialized. Does diversification in the future look like Kelly Garrett? Now it's, we got the farming operation, we got a gas station and a direct consumer beef business. It has to be.
But sometimes you get to a point where you're throwing good money at bad money too. You got to remember that. And it seems like it takes all this other stuff just to keep your farming operation afloat. And is that a good business decision?
That's 100% the way I feel some days. I look at all the other things I've started to do to supplement the farm and help the farm. And I love what I do, but I'm like, look at the monster I've created here because I wanted to make the farm more successful.
And that's exactly what I'm getting at. Like, is some of them things worth it? Now, I think that like some of them small things that you're talking about, that diversification and having, chickens and having, and a lot of farmers around home, like they farm and then they have, a chicken house operation with one of the integrators and they do very well like that. But when you really come down to it, they're taking that one that's making them a bunch of money to fund their other one.
When I started farming, I looked at hog houses and then, I looked at chicken houses. But then when you really dig down and, the bad experience you had with the equipment dealer where they said, this is yours.
Yeah.
Some of the custom hog feeding or the custom chicken feeding, you're going to go spend a fortune to buy yourself a job. And that's why I chose to use the trucks and things like that instead. Because, and the manure's nice. The manure from the chickens or the hogs are nice. Yeah. But I look at my friends that have hog buildings and I look at my friends that have chicken buildings and I'm like, boy, they spent a lot of money to get a job.
When it seems like, when we looked at, doing chicken houses at one time as well. And it seemed like when you got past that, like you had that guarantee, they always had this guarantee and it looked great on paper. And you're like, man, this is like awesome.
But so
when
did
you get to year 10.
Yes.
and then the guarantee goes away.
Yes.
And then they decrease your guarantee. And then all of a sudden, year 10, they're like, I need you to spend $100,000
to refurbish the barn.
They refurbish. They've got new technology.
And then they're not going to guarantee you flocks.
Yep.
And all of a sudden.
And then you lose your new house guarantee. But for the first 10 years, boy, you was crushing it.
That's the same analogy as your role with your equipment.
Yep.
You felt like you had a guarantee, and all of a sudden they're like, we don't want to do this anymore. And that's the same thing I worry about there. My chucking contract, I have a year left, and
You're worried.
I'd sure like to get that paper signed again.
Yeah.
So you asked the question, what we're going to do when things are tight. Here's the thing. I'm not being mean, but we've all lived through some farm cycles. This ain't going to be a 1-year blip.
No.
This ain't going to be a 1-year blip. You're here a while.
That's what we're talking about. We was talking about, we'll sit here and we have these companies too with fertility companies, right? And we all test product for them, and we need the product. Like we need that. But this trickle's going to go to them too. People where they was putting out 3 gallon, they may put out 2 gallon. People where they was putting out 3 gallon, they may not put out any gallons.
We talked about that a year ago. We're here this week kind of with AgroLiquid and stuff like that. And the fear that I have for young farmers, you want to talk about young farmers? They will cut out of those extra things that there's an ROI on, and they'll go back to just the basics. I think the dry fertility should be cut out, and they should live on that bank account that's in the soil. They should cut that out rather than the liquid things that we can measure the ROI. I think the wrong things get cut because of a lack of understanding.
Do you think so? The other day, I got my my soil samples back, right? And I started looking through them, and they were, when they took the soil samples, it was super dry, so I knew the numbers were going to be skewed somewhat. And I literally got pissed off, and I threw them all in the trash. And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm looking at them, because I've made up my mind over the last couple of years that I'm going to grow the crop for what it is and stay just in front of those windows. And I'm not going to put on any more than what's there. So do I really give a shit what's in the soil? And I know that that's a terrible, now I still need to worry about pH, because you still got to have some type of a balance. But there's a part of me that is just like, I think to get through these next few years, stop worrying about what's in that bank. And just grow the crop for what it is, and don't put on anything more than what that crop is going to utilize, and nothing else. That's the only way that we can be efficient enough where we can get to the bank at the end of the year and say, I made my payments.
Long term, you cannot save yourself to prosperity, but when things are tight, you need to try to save yourselves to prosperity.
And the hardest thing to do in this is not be emotional. You got to make a business decision here. Whether it's good or bad, you can't be emotional. And that's the toughest thing to do. Is to try to keep the emotion out.
What is that saying that you have, Kelly? Emotion loses money. You had this whole big thing.
Yeah.
And you told me this one day when I was on a real bent occasion at 5 a.m. in the morning. I called you and you told me this whole thing. It sunk in enough that I knew it, but I can't tell you what it was.
There's really only 3 emotions: happy, sad, and mad. And if you make a decision and you have too much of any of the 3 of them inside of you, you're probably screwing something up.
Yeah. By the way, there's another one, and that's what is driving most all behavior. There's happy, sad, mad, and fear. And that's where these kind of conditions put you in, and it's obviously natural. You can't do fight or flight. You can't walk out in your farming operation and say, "Oh, flight." What are you gonna do? Bail out?
Flight's not an option.
Bail out when you've got 1,000 acres that you own and whatever the other thing is.
We sit here talking about this, and we don't want to ruin everybody's. The spring is coming. Everybody's excited about planting a new crop. That's what we do. You're sitting here like, I don't even want to buy any seed. You don't want to be doom and gloom on it. We're gonna go do what we do.
And I just want to point out, Temple, he's the one that brought up the topic, and here it is. It's a mood killer. So I just want to say, this is what happens when Chad's in charge.
It's not, well,
Chad's in charge. Actually, you know what? It's reality.
It's reality. It's reality. And, we've had a nice rally in the grain markets. It's not as bleak as it was, but it just still doesn't look like a home run.
But, historically,
it never does.
Historically, it's about what it looks like.
Yeah.
Farming's a break-even endeavor.
Yeah.
You're talking about doing other stuff to keep it going. Again, how many farmers do you know that usually they were guys, the wife had a good job, and it was, the insurance came from the job, and then sometimes the payment came from the job, or maybe the farm. But you're also forgetting the other one. It's a bank of assets. You've got the farming thing. It doesn't necessarily always make a lot of net revenue, but you've got the asset situation.
And we're sitting here like, one of my sayings is, you'll never do anything that somebody hasn't done. Okay? We'll never do as in the front or thinking out of the box. we'll never do anything that somebody hasn't done. We'll do it better, or we'll do it more efficiently, or we'll figure out how to maybe get it done. But as far as the first thing, it's very hard for you to think of one thing that your dad or granddad hadn't done it for.
There's no more original ideas.
Yeah, no. So they've already been through this. They've sat around this table, whether it be the kitchen table, and had the same conversation for generations, So this is something that everybody hadn't been through. The farm's still going, and we'll get through it. I mean, it's just part of it.
I think I would wrap this episode right there. But the thing is, I'm terrified to come over here and say, I think that's
just hold on to the spoon and go ahead and do it.
You got it. Here you go.
Okay. His name's Chad Henderson. His name's Temple Rhodes. His name's Kelly Garrett. You know what they did? They came in here with an attitude. They drove down here, and Temple got Chad all completely instigated, fired up, agitated, came in here physically threatening me. Not normal for Chad. He's normal. First farm I ever went to in XtremeAg, my buddy Chad. I thought we were good, but then he came in here and he started threatening me. Anyway, talking about all sorts of things, including what are we going to do this year? Well, actually, what we know we're going to do is continue to get by just like you always have. Tune in to the Granary. You can pull up a chair right here if you're wondering what to do, because the most important thing you do is always keep an open line of communication and keep your sense of humor, and more importantly, manage those emotions like Kelly talked about. Till next time, thanks for being here. Damian Mason coming at you with my good friends from XtremeAg. It's tenuous, but we're good friends just the same. Cheers. All right, you little son of a bitch. I let you guys set the topic, and I let you come in here and get all hot on this food.